difficult or?
It's sharing properly, I think, for me. Yeah, you are showing slide.
Yep. Are the slides changing? Fine. You can
Yeah,
see the
yeah.
changing slides 51, 52, 53, 54.
Yes, 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 ma'am. Pretty fine.
Okay. When I'm there at my native place at home, so internet connection is quite low. I don't have a Wi-Fi over here.
Okay, okay, okay.
So I was just checking if that just running this laptop to my phone. So is it working fine or not?
Yeah, it's working. Thank you very much.
Sandeep has joined. Yep. Hi, Sandeep.
Hello, Mayank.
Hi, Sandeep. Just give me 1 minute before we start.
Okay.
Yep. So Sandeep, did you try your hands on the application? So I committed the code
Yeah.
that just worked upon. So did you get a chance to just work and play around with the code that we committed? And
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Mayank.
am I audible?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Just give me 1 minute. Okay. Yep. So I'll just come back on what we did yesterday. So any questions from yesterday? We have one question which we talked about how to import CSS. I didn't take much time to explore for it, but yeah, let's see. I know another way to import CSS, and we'll just try to take a look on this, or probably I'll come back to that question tomorrow because today I was just busy with something, so I was not able to just take those questions and work around the solution for those questions. Okay, at the time.
Yep. Yep.
Did you find some answer to it,
I didn't try.
Sandeep? Did you
No.
find anything around the styling part?
No, no.
Okay. So we just had how to import the CSS part, and then let's see. Okay, so we rendered the first element. We did the JSX part. Yesterday we talked about the automatic semicolon insertion. Then we just discussed about how to have JSX into the multi-line. Then we talked about a stateless function, like anything you create using function is a stateless function, and we just talked about that any stateless function that you have should not contain its own data, and that's what we were doing over here for each parent dev. When we just finished, I think we just talked about parent dev having this state data. So this current time is given just defined by parent dev, and this current time goes to each component that we have, each subcomponent that we have. So we can have multiple subcomponents over here. So I just removed all of them and just placed one of them. And then I said that this because it's defined using function, it's a stateless function. So you should not have such data which is like changing. So we should not have changing data. We should not have a state, I would say a state inside the stateless component. Any component defined using function is a stateless component, and don't define local variables and data inside it. The more of functionality of child components are like they take props from their parent and just work around with those props. So we'll just see how we'll make this how we'll make this example that we created for refreshing the time every seconds a better one using some state components. Yep, so we talked about the stateless component, passing props into the component, and yep, we talked about creating native functions and data which can be accessed inside the JSX that we have using a single curly braces. So any questions on this, whatever we covered yesterday? So we also talked about the styles. So you can define a constant styles over here. It contains different key value pair. This key value pair further contains the styling for that element. And then we can have style equal to styles.header or styles.logo, which defines our entire key value pair for styling. This was one. So I'm just going through the slides, and in case you find anything which is, not getting those facts, so we can just discuss again. So another way to add style is an inline style, wherein you are putting inside double curly braces some background color which is equal to green, and the div comes out to be green in color. This is another way wherein inline CSS would work. Then we also talked about the JSX compilation, why people would go for a JSX rather than going through native JavaScript. So we have covered this already, and we have, so yeah, this is a script which says, okay, if you have a div and a paragraph tag containing hello world, if that has to represent without the JSX just to have the HTML part, so this would be the equivalent JavaScript. So we are returning react.create element, a div having no a empty curly braces stating there is no attributes. Inside it we are creating another div, inside it we are creating another paragraph containing a hello world text. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
And yep, so over here it is a slide which just compares how JSX is different from HTML. So on the top is the HTML part, and on going down is the JSX part. So on the top we can say that there are few keywords that has been replaced inside JSX, like class. So the class on the top has been replaced by class name. The style, which comes out to be border and equal to something, it is then replaced by double curly braces containing the style elements. Then we have a HTML component which says label for. So this for is now replaced by HTML for. So this label has HTML for this name. So there are few attributes which are different in JSX than what we have in a native HTML.
Yeah.
So the most important one is the class, because every time in your application you will try to add some class to the components that you have. So you can have you can play around with class name. And then we were discussing about this rendering element, which is like a clock getting updated every second. So so it is just the same example. It has a function tick. This function tick contains react dom.render, and we are just defining this element inside a constant element. This contains hello world, and it is the the current time, and we are rendering this entire HTML or JSX inside document.getElementById root. And we are refreshing, or we are setting a set timeout which refreshes this tick or refreshes this react DOM after every 1000 milliseconds. But we also saw the downside of it. We talked about that in our application there might be multiple parts which need not to be re-rendered. Let's say the footer, the header, the content, the side page, the navigation bars, and all that stuff. So since